Welcome to the Curious Conversation Collaborative, a community for purpose-seeking entrepreneurs, leaders, and changemakers.
Listen to inspiring conversations with your hosts, inner leadership mentor Tessa Van Keken and business wealth coach Karen Ravel.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
I'm well, Tessa. How are you this week?
Good, good. So I was just wondering, I think we have been talking about a lot of different topics about bringing more alignment in business. And today we wanted to talk about the different business models.
Yeah, and I find this a really interesting topic. It's something that I teach about and consult about, because there are so many people out there that say, you know, you need to build your business this way. And there's lots of these blueprints out there that people say, follow this 7-step blueprint and, you know, it'll work. And, you know, all of these things do work. They do work in that they will get you a result if you follow them. But it's how hard or how easy is it for you to follow them? And if people don't follow them, they're often criticized as like just giving up too easily. They haven't got the staying power, the willpower, or whatever. But actually, if these things don't play to our strengths, then not only is it just hard, like you're swimming upstream, it's just totally draining of your energy, and it creates a lot of fear and anxiety and that. And like, really, do we want to build businesses in that way? Absolutely not. So I think for me, the first place to come from is like, what's your natural strengths? What's your personality? What lights you up? What makes you feel good? And looking at building a business using models and tools and strategies that support that in the first place.
Yeah, to me that makes total sense. And it's interesting, right? And I think there's two elements to it. I do think, again, and this comes back, you know, we talk about alignment. And again, in my work that I do with clients, I come more from this space of, you know, being true to yourself and finding your own inner compass, your inner wisdom. And I think even with this, it's like, you know, when you're looking at business models, I mean, I think in any business, there's always going to be elements that will that you struggle with more, or that you find more difficult. You know, even if a business model is good for you, there's still going to be elements. So it's important to realize that we're not talking about finding a business model, again, this kind of, you know, this wonderful promise of like, oh, if you find your model, then everything will all the time flow and you will never have any struggle, because that's just not the way it works. But I think, again, it's really, for me, it starts like, yeah, what you said, you start with finding your strengths, finding your, what really works for you. But also one step before that really for me is also to then really have that awareness that when you're struggling with something or when you're following a model, can you really go to that place where you know that the resistance to it has to do with your own, where it does have to do with your own mindset, where it might be yeah, like other stuff that's going on for you that's stopping you from taking action. It could be, again, self-doubt. It could be so many different things. Or is this really somewhere where you can feel, hey, this is a way that's just not me. This is not working for me. So it comes back again to, are you willing to really sit with yourself and really listen to yourself as well, to your inner wisdom, your intuition around really, and asking support for that if you need, to figure out, is this something I actually need to push through a little bit? Do I need to look at this a little bit more and get support to be able to follow these steps? Because I think I noticed for myself when I set up my business, it's very interesting. My first business I set up, I actually was talking the other day to someone about it, and I said, like, I don't know what I did. Because I was very good in just like, you know, I got an idea, I did things, and then like, you know, things just happened. And I was like, and that's great. The problem is though that you can't measure it, you can't record it, you can't do anything, and then something else happens and you don't know what you did and you don't know how to do it again, and then I run into trouble with setting up the second business around that. There is times where that didn't work, where I did need to know, like I actually need to be able to see and measure what I'm doing to be able to take the right steps to grow. So for me, that was very important to talk to people that are a little bit more organized than I am in that matter, who can actually say and help me to look at models so that I can actually create a little bit more structure around that.
Yeah, but I think it's also what you said there, Tessa, is about, it's about knowing and understanding or trusting that going forward and doing something that feels uncomfortable, like we all have to stretch ourselves, we all have to go outside our comfort zones, but you can go outside your comfort zone towards something that scares you but also feels exciting, versus something that absolutely scares the living daylights out of you and makes you want to run away and hide. And I think that, you know, straight away, if you've got one that feels quite exciting as well as scary, that's moving you in the right direction. It's still going to stretch you and you know, like I say, push you to the edge of your comfort zone, but it's not going to like make you completely freak out and stop. So I think it is about understanding that inner tension, if you like, that's going on within. But it's also, you know, to me, on a practical sort of business level, it is about, it's not about doing the latest thing that is out there. You know, that's what I have a real sort of bugbear with, is like, so as you know, I do a lot of work with archetypes and you know, talent and wealth dynamics, and it's like, if you're someone who's a real people person, then, you know, setting up, I don't know, Facebook groups or creating a community or something, you're going to really thrive in that environment and you're going to have great connection with your audience. But if you're someone who's more a process structured, you know, likes analysis, likes content, likes data, you're going to hate that.
Yeah.
And you know, and to me, this really shows up in the way people, you know, maybe set up membership sites. So, you know, a membership site can be your business model. You can say, right, I'm creating a business model using a membership site. But even within a membership site, you can, you know, you can have one that's very community based and one that's very content driven and teaching, you know, based, releasing content and that, and doesn't have a huge community around it. So straight away, you can even use tools that can create quite different business models. And so it's really important that you create a business model that's right for you and the way that you work, and that, because that's the way you're going to interact with people and your audience, and you're going to attract the people who like that type of learning environment as well. So it you know, it's a two-way
channel. And I think that's the thing, right? I think there is this thing as your main model, the work that you do, the model that's based on the service you offer or the product you do or whatever it is that you do, that model has to be aligned with who you are and how you like to work and what your strengths are, as you said. And then within that, there might be certain elements that you need support with from, like, you know, for instance, again, if there's technical stuff that you can't do, then by all means get someone to help you with that if you need to, like, you know, you don't have to do it all by yourself. The other side of it can be that sometimes I think we're serving people that, you know, there's also an element of like, and I know you do a lot of work around this, of course, like which type of energy you're in and that way. And I do a lot of work with people to realize that, you know, being true to yourself doesn't mean you do everything your way without taking into account that different people react differently and that you have to also adapt to that depending on the person you're relating with in that moment in time. So I think it's also important to realize that, for instance, if I'm all over the place and this works for me and I can very easily shift and I can just reschedule and it doesn't matter and we just on the day decide what time we do a call or anything like that, I could say I can only work with clients that are like that and can handle that, but that wouldn't be fully realistic. So I think there's the other element of that as well, that within being like that, of course, like what I offer, my classes, my courses, there is always a high element of bespoke in it, because there's not the rigid, like we do this on day one and this on day, but at the same time, I'm very aware that people need some structure. So I need to also be mindful, and that's what you said about knowing the resistance, that it's not fully natural to me, but I notice that it helps me and my clients to also really then give an overview of what might happen. And then something else might actually happen in the calls in the end, but to give them something to kind of give a little anchor of like, look, these are the things we might discuss next week. Or, you know, or it could even be around, again, if I say about scheduling things, that like I had to really look into all these kind of booking and scheduling sites, because I realized that the people that I would like to work with, they like that. They like to be able to go somewhere to just see what times I'm available, rather than just call me or message me to figure that out. So I think that's that element where you also need to be realistic, that you say you, as your main way of working, has to be aligned to you, otherwise you're going to be miserable. But you also need to take into account that different people feel things differently. So that sometimes, like for instance, you mentioned the Facebook group, and I think for certain programs we offer, people really crave that kind of place where they can communicate and connect with other people that might also be in a course. So I think if that is something that you find very difficult to do, there's also no harm at all with getting some support around running a Facebook group, or another way of allowing people that you might not be as actively in it as someone else who is really comfortable with running groups of 2,000 people, but you can still create a community if you notice that your client or your tribe or your people really crave that, even though it's not your main thing.
Yeah, but I also think it's around, you know, really identifying the type of business model that you want, based on your strengths, but on your goals as well, because there's a lot of people out there that I see teaching that, you know, you've got to start with, you know, especially in the service-based industries, the service sector is like, you start off with you know, a free product, and you know, then you have a small price product, and then you know, you build what they call a value ladder, that you kind of work your way up, and then you can charge premium level, you know, programs or whatever, offerings, or done for you, you know, hand holding programs. But actually, for some people, that is really hard to start off with, because you're starting off with low price, which means you need high volume in order to get enough money in the door for it to make it viable, which is great if you enjoy driving traffic to landing pages, or you like to create massive Facebook groups, you know. But there's also the opposite to that. There's also, you know, being someone who offers very high-end, like you say, bespoke offerings. So you don't need such large numbers, so you don't need to use either of those strategies, but it's very much bespoke, it's intimate, it's, you know, and you know, or you can have someone who's a real great thought leader, and it's very much focused around them, and they have like inner circles and things like that. So it's kind of, I really do think that you need to, there's lots and lots of different business models out there, and it is about seeing what fits you, in terms of like, yes, your strengths and that, but also your goals. What do you want to achieve? Not everyone wants to go out there and create a 6 or 7 or now 8 figure business.
I think
that's not the reason why some people start their business. So we have to kind of, you have to take all of that into account when deciding what's the right business model for you. And you might not get it right straight away, but being aware of those things, you know, otherwise we're always copying or looking to someone else of like how they're building their business. Oh, I need to do it that way.
And I think this is also important, right? It's good to look at different, like when choosing a model, it can be good 2 things, like, you know, obviously you need to be also just looking at what you at this moment in time can do, and like some models also require more pre-investment than others. So yeah, there can also be a whole realistic thing in that part. I do think, resistance or not, it can be good to actually, you know, if you need this support to get actually good pictures. Something that I learned a lot of, like, you know, someone asking me, so what's your account, what is coming in, what's going out, and I went like, no idea. I just do something, you know. So I do think, you know, once I had the first few months of business running, that I was like, oh yeah, this is actually useful, even if only for doing your taxes. And I don't know what we want to talk about here. It does make sense to have a proper business model with business plans and all that to a degree. But
as an ex-accountant, I'd always say know your numbers.
I was terrible with that. So, and I said, and also I learned, I got actually an accountant, right? I still needed to obviously write down. I mean, it was not like one of my friends who had a really big business and big money who just handed in a bag with receipts to his accountant and said, you sort it out. I mean, I did not have the kind of money to do that. I had to still make my own Excel sheets, but that kind of bit, yeah, you just like it or not, you have to do something around that, because I think, yeah, you just, otherwise, we talked about this before, it's a hobby, it's not a business. But I fully agree with your saying around like finding your strengths. And I think there's two things. Sometimes what happens is we see someone being successful with a certain model, and we might like that person, we might admire that person, and then think, oh, that's what I want.
Yeah.
But not realizing that, yeah, but that's a totally different person, and they have a different type of energy, they have a different way of what they really do. And then if we follow that, and it seems the right thing to do, because hey, I like this person, I resonate with them, I admire them, so surely that means that it feels right to me, right?
Yeah.
But so that can be a real danger one, I think. You also have the ones where if you get a business mentor that they tell you certain steps you should do and it just doesn't resonate. But I think the ones that you do resonate with, that you think, oh, that sounds amazing, that's what I want, but you don't stop to actually think, yeah, but does that suit me? Is that really me? Or is this just because sometimes we admire people that are nearly the opposite of ourselves, because they have something that we know we need a little bit of, but we might not need that fully. So I think what can be really helpful in choosing a model is also just look at different people, also the ones that you might not right away think, oh yeah, that's the way I want to do. And really, and if you can, talk to them and ask what is actually behind what you see on the outside, what is actually involved to do that model. And is that what you like? Because sometimes on the outside, you might see something and think, oh, that means I get to, I don't know, be on stage all the time, or it means that, but that means also, for instance, that you travel a lot, and maybe you really like being somewhere in one place, and you suddenly realize, I had a teacher who did amazing retreats all around the world. Sounds amazing, in Bali, in America, everywhere, yeah? But part of that was that he was hardly ever home with his family. So it is really good to also look at those kind of things that, you know, and what you said with the money, like some people think like, but money is not always better. If all you want is steady, I don't know, a steady business that gives you the income you need to support yourself and possibly your loved ones or whatever, and you just like having a house in a normal area or whatever, these kind of things, then you don't need these billions and yachts and retreats or whatever else. So I think it's very important to look at what's behind what you see on the outside of
absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's really important. I think what we're saying is like, don't just, I think a lot of the business models out there kind of resonate with us on a logical level, but we need to go deeper inside and actually really connect in with who we are and what we desire before we really commit to a business model that's right for us.
Yeah, and like, well, for instance, what we said with the traveling, very often people think, oh yeah, I love traveling, but it's very different to travel personally with yourself or your family or your partner or your kids or whoever, and enjoy it as a holiday, or traveling for a retreat. So just the fact that you might like traveling doesn't mean you should use a business model where your work involves traveling. It might mean that you need a model where you earn enough money so that you can take holidays and travel. So that kind of stuff, you know, like, so don't, and that's the thing, like you say, like, so it's the resonating, not just logically, but also actually those passions, but to realize, but is this a work passion or a holiday passion, or what is the passion actually, and what's involved with it? And do I like that? Do I like the work that's involved with this model? If this model requires me to work 80 hours a week, do I like it? If this model requires me to travel 80% of the month, do I like it? If this model, and so on and so on. So check what it actually entails.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Right.
I think, and that's something we'll talk in another episode about again in another month, this thing of like, know what the models entail, but also really, if you don't really know, make sure you find a way to figure out what really your purpose, your strengths, your way of being is. And I know you do a lot of work around that.
Absolutely.
So we'll talk another
Always
time
start
again
with that.
how you can find that out if you don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Best place. Build your business from the inside out.
Build your business from the inside out and know who you truly are.
Yeah, that's it. Right. Well, on that note, I think we'll finish up there. And we look forward to speaking to you all again next week.
Right, talk to you soon. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Did you enjoy this episode? Do share your thoughts and questions in the comments or send us a message.
Do you know someone else who'd be interested in our curious conversations? Please share and spread the word. You can find out more about us at karenravel.com
and tessavancaken.com. Tune in next week for another curious conversation.